Welcome to Stories Untold, a podcast about immigrant entrepreneurs, the businesses they've built, and the challenges they've faced along the way. I'm your host, Sharzad.
And this is Panis. Each week, we sit down with entrepreneurs from different backgrounds and talk about how they build their companies from ideation to execution. Our goal is to inspire, empower, and help you take your idea to the next stage. On today's show, the story of a young Indian couple whose common passion for education and technology led them to connect on social media, fall in love, and get married, all in less than just 9 months. Anshul and Arjita are social entrepreneurs, and before meeting each other, they both had aspirations to change the way kids learn and gain knowledge. But they had very different approaches, and shortly after getting to know each other, they realized that these never-ending problems the education system was facing around the world couldn't be solved using the same old solutions. So they got really creative and they started working on what used to be their side hustle, and they quickly realized that their solution to modernizing and scaling equal education was very unique. So they decided to start a company called Equally, which is a social network for kids in an augmented reality. Equally released their first product, the Da Vinci Club, just last week, and they've already got hundreds of kids subscribed to their app, ready to learn from their environment.
Shahrzad and I are so excited to have you both on our show. So tell us more about yourselves. Introduce yourselves to our listeners.
Thank you for having us. We're very excited about this podcast. I am Arjita Sethi, and I am the co-founder of Equally. And my background has been in entrepreneurship. I was 16 when I started my first company, and it was a school for the underprivileged, which gave them vocational training and so that they could get jobs. So that was my background with teaching. And then 5 years ago, I moved here, did my master's in social entrepreneurship. I have a funny and interesting and a mixed background because my undergrad was in physical therapy, and then I got bored and I moved on to drama and Shakespeare, and then I moved on, did my master's in social entrepreneurship. But here I am today and working on Equally.
Hi guys, I'm Anshul Dhawan. I moved to United States 10 years ago. I came to USC to do masters in computer science. From that, I started working at Zynga as an engineer. I worked on Zynga Poker, which was one of the first games on Facebook, so very exciting time, and Zynga was doing really well. So I got right into, that was my entry into Silicon Valley, so it was very exciting. Then I moved into product management. There I worked on games like Words with Friends, worked on Central Technologies, and then eventually I left Zynga, and now I'm a co-founder at Equally, and we are building the next generation of education technology.
You guys have a very impressive background, both of you. Before we dive deeper into what you guys do today and your company Equally, we want to understand the difference between being a social entrepreneur and just a regular entrepreneur. I feel like that's a field that more and more, it's a recent field and a lot of people might not know about it. So tell our listeners the difference between that.
Entrepreneurship is all about scaling and making profits. And in the easiest way possible, social entrepreneurship is about the triple bottom line, where you take care of the people, planet, and profits. So everything goes in a balance, and as you grow, you're helping the community around you, the planet around you. And Anshul says it very aptly that we are building the next 1 billion person company instead of the $1 billion company. I love the way he puts it.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of putting it. Basically, you're just impacting that many people. Earlier, you mentioned you started your very first business at age 16. That's very impressive. How did that even get started? Take us back to that moment and tell us the story.
Yeah, I think a lot of my upbringing and my family and, just the way I saw my parents and I saw my grandparents has to do a lot with that, because I remember my grandfather was a businessman And my mom was a social entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship was literally the way of life that I had seen. And my dad was in the army and he was away a lot. So the only person I saw around me was my mom. So entrepreneurship, a woman running a business was like, oh, this is how you live. This is normal. So at 16, I remember I was talking to Anshul about this last night that actually I started working way before, but legally the age was 16. So, that's when I can seriously say that I started the business. But why I started at 16 is this was around the time when in India there are basically 3 professions that you have to choose from. Either you can be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer.
Sounds very familiar, by the way.
Right? So, and if none of those, you can probably think of becoming a teacher. That's like the 4th exception to the rule. But that's as far. If you choose to start your own thing, probably you're dumb. You're not, intelligent enough. Something went wrong in your life that you had to start your own thing. But at that time, at 16, I was really confused of what I wanted in my life. I had these friends of mine in high school picking engineering fields, going to coaching institutes, which are a normal thing in India. They take these tuition classes and extra classes and everything. And the only happiness I felt was every time I went to the school where I was teaching and, talking to these students. It's like, wait, this is what I'm going to do. I'm still, because I was an A grade student and I had to take science. So I took science in my high school, but I said, this is what I'm going to do. Once I graduate, this is what I'm going to do. So while I was doing my undergrad as physiotherapist, I ran this business with my mom. So my mom and I co-founded the school. And I remember like the earliest memories that I talk about is my mom and I and my little brother would get up in the morning at 3 a.m. and go and, distribute pamphlets and everything because guerrilla marketing really works in India. So, those were the early startup lessons that she would teach me. That we both were the only 2 women and there were all these men and, they would talk in the crude language and it was really scary. But it became normal for me over a period of time that you have to take risks. You have to be courageous. That's normal way of life. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I kind of want to turn it over to Anshul. What about you? Were you also starting at a very young age, or how were you in school? Just kind of give us a background about yourself.
Sure. So in school, the funny thing was that my mom was a teacher in that school. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt. We went to the same high school 2 years apart and we never met.
No. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's the same school.
Because my mom was in the school, it was almost having like a parent-teacher meeting every day. And most of the kids thought that I knew all the answers in the exam, so they were jealous of me or whatever. They didn't like me a lot. So imagine I'm not getting the answers, but still having the parent-teacher meeting every day. So it wasn't a very pleasant experience, and I hated class. And my mom I remember my mom being very, very worried that I don't get high marks, that I'm not interested in class. But I think she, because she was my physics teacher, she finally gave in when I did really well in one of the experiments and I could actually perform. It was an experiment to build a solar cooker, and I was able to build that and get the highest temperature in the entire class. So that's when she was like, okay, I think you'll be fine. Yeah. So that is how it started. And then I remember in high school, the only class that I really liked was the computer science class, and the rest of it we probably didn't attend. And that continued in my undergrad also. I was falling behind in my subjects because of attendance. It's just that I never liked being in the class. I always liked building stuff. I remember in my undergrad also I built robots. That is the most fun time I had. I won awards for that. And that actually led me to, I think, to learn more. I really wanted to learn more. I was never fascinated by working in US. When I moved here, it was purely for just learning more, because I felt that I had not learned enough. And that's why I came to USC, and it was just the most wonderful time because I think the environment that was provided, and I was building games. I came here to do AI and robotics, but there's a games program at USC that is so good, and it gives you, a safe environment to build the games that you like to do. So it was the best environment to learn. And I think that really helped me sort of get really successful at Zynga because that's what they were looking for. They were looking for people who can just be creative and sort of do stuff on their own. So that is my experience starting from school.
Pretty fascinating. And I just love hearing how your backgrounds, without really planning to, start your company, which we will talk about what your company is, your background is literally what you're doing today for your own company. And I feel like that story is just so fascinating to hear how it all just started, and now it's a company, and you guys are just practicing your passions, which is really rare, and you guys are really fortunate. So you touched on a little bit on, like, you went to the same high school, but you never met, and you met on Facebook. Yeah. Like, how does that even happen?
When you're in the same high school, you generally add each other on social media. So that is, I think it happened on another social network, and all those friends carried over from that to Facebook when everybody moved to Facebook. And I think when I contacted Arjita, I asked her about the work that she was doing. And it was really interesting because I was always kind of interested in education, and I saw her posting pictures of her school that she was running on Facebook, and that was a great way for us to start the conversation. So that's how that's how I messaged her.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we went 2 years apart, so he had graduated by the time I reached high school. So I knew of him, and he knew of me, but we never knew each other.
Got it.
And there was never the right opportunity to even talk. And he was the teacher's son. You don't talk to teachers' sons, They know all the answers. They've got this, this whole ability to get all the meat out of exam paper. So no, we never spoke about that. And now he tells me stories which is like, oh my God, you were really funny in school, but I never thought of that. I always thought of you as the teacher's son. So that is what, and I think that is what triggered our conversation on Facebook, because you get so many messages and you never respond, especially to the people whom you never speak to. But there's something when somebody appreciates your work, and the first thing that they notice about you is your work. Is the impact that you're making, instead of, just how you look or certain things, which essentially social media is all about, looking at the pictures and commenting, oh, this is amazing, you look great and everything. But what I liked and how we started talking is, it's like, I'm really passionate about world literacy. I really want to get innovative ways to get education to people. And I was like, and that was the right time, because I was running into issues of scale with my school. I was able to train only 10,000 students a year. Because 10,000. In India, which is like 1.2 billion people, 10,000 is like nothing, right? So that is when I had made up my mind that yes, technology is going to get me there. But I was not from technology. So when Anshul told me that he builds games, I was like, this is the right thing. We need to start putting the curriculum that I'm designing probably on some tech platform to hit scale. So I think that moment was right. If we would have chatted at some other point, we probably wouldn't have. It's a lot of serendipity, I would say, that happened. And I think our skills just matched at that point.
So you message her, Arjita, on Facebook. And what happens after that? Because earlier we heard Pawnee's, when she was given an intro, you guys got married in less than 9 months?
Yes.
Yeah, so after I messaged her, we chatted for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, we decided that, I think we can get married. It's hard to say what exactly was going through our minds, but that's what we decided. And then I flew to India, I remember. And I landed really early morning in Delhi, and my flight was delayed. So she wasn't expecting me at that time, but I went straight to meet her for the first time at 6 or 7 a.m. in Delhi, just coming directly from San Francisco. And then we went to Taj Mahal. I proposed to her. And
what a beautiful place.
And suddenly, and when you tell your parents so I told my parents that obviously before meeting her, I told my parents that I've met this girl. Okay, and as soon as you tell your Indian parents that you've met a girl and you kind of even mention of getting married, they're like, yeah, of course, we'll set everything up. That's what they're waiting for. So everything happened really quickly after that. And then we got married in 9 months.
Yeah, but they thought we were bluffing. Like, they really did not think we would go through this. Like, his mom keeps telling us, you guys arranged your own marriage. Who does that? And my dad freaked out because he was like, okay, I just went to him. I'm like, there's this guy I've been talking to, and I think we'll get married. And he's like, okay, who's the guy? And I said, he's in San Francisco. This is what he does. When did you meet him? I was like, I've not met him yet.
Virtually.
And my dad was like, are you okay? Is everything fine? And he's looking at my mom and he's saying, what's wrong with her? And, there's this guy who flies in from San Francisco, takes me to Taj Mahal, and I say yes, and we're calling our parents, this is it, we're getting married. They kind of freaked out, but I think 5 years later now, they're like, okay, now we think you guys pretty much are the same, so it's okay, it makes sense. But it did not make sense at that time to anyone. Yeah.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Brave.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't find the word, but I think brave is the right choice of word.
Yeah.
Well, we always from my perspective, I always wanted a story. I always have this. I don't know. I'm always nagging myself to do things that are not considered not wisdom, because I think this wisdom is just making is building a box around us. So I don't know why I always keep I like to push that box. Yeah. And I was like, yes, this seems right. Why this is the perfect story. This seems like a great thing to do. Yeah. And it seems like she's exactly the kind of person that I am, and is sort of the risk appetite is the same, which is what we were looking for.
And tell us a little bit more about, so you moved here in 2014. We know that you were working at Zynga at the time. What was your plan like, Arjita?
So I remember this, a month before we were getting married, Anshul came to India because of the preparations of the wedding and everything. And we are sitting at this mall in Delhi, and he's like, don't get me wrong, I love the work that you do here, but you teach English. What are you going to do in the US? It's freaking me out. You're going to move in a month. What are you going to do? And I'm pretty much freaked out myself, but, just trying to have that brave face. And my mom walks in and she's like, I have full faith on her. I know she'll be okay. I'm looking at her no, I'm not going to be fine. I'm freaking out. But yeah, we started having these conversations really early, for us really early, because everything happened within 9 months. That what I'm going to do, but we had this plan of these videos that we were building already. So I had started preparing the scripts already. I had started preparing the curriculum. I was managing the school in India virtually while I was here. So we were doing all those things as a project, not as a company, as I told you. But we always had that plan that we have to get to work because that gives us joy. Every time we sat together and built those videos or built a business plan or just thought of prototyping, it gave us so much joy. Like, people go on dates and they have this fun. We get a whiteboard and we have that fun, that thrill. So that is really exciting. And that was how we have been since day one. We've just been prototyping the entire thing. So, yeah.
You get married. You guys moved back to the US. What was the first step you took, Arjita? Because you are still working at Zynga, correct?
We're not worried about you.
Yeah. So... I also kind of want to hear a little bit about any challenges that you faced in the first few months after your immigration to the U.S.
Yeah.
So kind of give us a little background, tell us that story of what happened once you got here.
Yeah. As a person who's always been independent in her life, especially since 16, and, financially independent, emotionally independent, when I moved here, I was on a dependent visa. And for the first time in my life, I was told I cannot do the things that I want to do. I cannot work. I cannot, do a business. I cannot do anything, even if I have the qualification for it. And I think that was a very, very hard time. And not just hard because there was a shortage of money. No, he had a great job. Financially, we were fine. But psychologically, that impact that you are qualified and yet you cannot do anything and you can do nothing about it. It's not that if you get another degree, it's going to change. It's not going to change ever unless, you become a citizen or a resident. And I keep finding friends who move from outside and come here and go through the entire process. And I just want to share this message that it's not, we don't want the sympathy, we want the empathy there. Don't pity us, understand us at that point, because no matter what you do, there are people who are PhDs and move here and cannot work. And that's a big jolt to anyone psychologically and mentally and emotionally. So those are few things that people don't understand. And the first time I moved here, I was teaching English, but the American accent, it's difficult to understand. The first 6 months is really scary. You go to Starbucks and they keep asking you, and there's this huge line behind you, and you're like, oh my God, I have to make this decision in the next 5 seconds.
I think 5 is too many.
Yeah. No, this is too much pressure. And nobody would understand that if you've not gone through it.
How did you manage your time? And you guys are married, so there's a life, personal, a business, and a marriage that you have to balance through. So how did you do it?
Well, I mean, we learned how to do it properly. I would say I think we were not doing it well when we started. I think we thought it would be easier, but it isn't. I think we learned how to sort of compartmentalize time. Sort of when we are working, and we sort of dedicate that time to working. And then we take out time, our work time is from 9 to 6, and we say, okay, that's when we talk about work. That's the only time we should be talking about work.
Really?
Not really, but that at least puts a boundary and makes it better that, okay, it's okay, like this is not the time. So at least set your own boundaries, because otherwise all the time is work, and it was difficult. But now we've got better at it by sort of dedicating the right time and right place for what we need to talk about.
Yeah, and I would say it's not for everyone. You have to go in understanding there is possibility of failure, but if it works out, it's going to be magic. I think more about balancing. I don't like the word balance because we don't have anything balanced in our lives. Like, as entrepreneurs, balance is like, we want to be on the top of everything, there is no balance. So it's not more about balance, it's more about space, like giving space to each other. We are being together all the time, when we work, when we prototype, when we innovate, when we are running the house. Just giving each other that space, like even while running equally, we both have different things that we do. And that doesn't come in each other's way. We have complementary skills, which add to the benefit of the company and to the value of the company. So it's not that we are always together. We are at work, literally, we hardly spend time with each other, only when it is strategizing or investor pitching and everything, because we have different things to do.
We've been talking a lot about Equally, and we pretty much, our listeners know by now, hopefully, that Equally is an education company. But we want to kind of dive a little deeper and truly understand what this company is about. What are the products you guys are offering, and what is your monetization model?
So what we're doing with Equally now with our next product, it's called Da Vinci Club. It's a social network for kids to become explorers. How we are building this product is that we allow kids to take their phones or devices and click pictures of the world. And we turn that into knowledge, and it turns into a knowledge card, and they start playing a trading game out of that knowledge card. So we are turning the world into a trading card game that kids are playing. And how we are thinking about it is that we are allowing kids to connect to the real world. Because one of the things that we noticed that when we were prototyping all these other things was that each product that we were building was taking the kid away from the real world. Sort of looked at where the technology is going. So if you see from PC to mobile phones, it moved from a screen to your pockets, but it still was a world. Do you look at do the kids interact with the world, or versus do they look at the technology? And we saw sort of this augmented reality and artificial intelligence, the state that they're in currently is at the perfect time to actually remove the barrier from the technology today and actually let the child augment what they want to do using technology. So instead of it becoming a world versus technology, it becomes a world plus technology. So a kid can use this technology to sort of answer questions that it always is asking their parents. What is this? What is that? What is this thing? So we've turned that a very natural experience on how kids learn into a game. How it works is we give it free of cost to all schools and all nonprofits, and we will maintain that because that's the mission of our company. And we allow parents, if they like the products, to pay for that as a subscription fee per month if they want their kids to play outside of schools.
So we wanted something that doesn't just focus on STEM, it focuses on arts as well, and it focuses on social skills. So that is why Da Vinci Club, that children should be able to learn anything that they want. And again, we both have been inspired by books a lot. I am a crazy reader. I read 1 or 2 books a week. And if I don't, I feel there's some vacuum. So there's this book that we've been inspired by, and it's called The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. It's essentially a book about this magical device that can teach a child or give information to a child no matter where that child is. So this is what we want to build, and with Da Vinci, I think we are getting a little closer to that vision. But ultimately, we want to create a world where just a device can connect the child to any part of the world. So imagine a child in Tanzania and a child in Silicon Valley and a child in India and a child in Iran. If they have access to this, they just take a picture of probably a landmark and find knowledge and share it with their friends anywhere in the world.
That's incredible.
So they can the world becomes their classroom, and now they're sharing and connecting. Like one of the moms told us when we were trying this out in early testers, she was like, my child was moving while on the device. I've never seen that happen. So those are the kind of feedbacks that we liked, and that's the vision that we are going towards.
Education in general is a scary space for entrepreneurs to move towards. When you hear education, you think, oh, there's no money in it. I'm not even going to get close to it. So you guys found a way to bring education into a platform, make it a technology, an ed tech essentially. But during this time, did you find it hard when you're meeting investors and when you're trying to raise funds? Mm-hmm. Is it challenging?
Definitely. I think EdTech has gone through its best periods. So I think it's a dry time to raise money for EdTech. Because all the investments that companies did, all the venture money that went into these companies didn't get the returns that they were hoping for. But I think there's still, I think it's getting more disciplined, which means that they want more, they're looking for better sort of, they want to de-risk more number of things in the company before investing, which is just being more disciplined, as I said. But I think the difficulty is coming, in our view, is coming from the point of view that the education, when you're inserting technology into a system which itself is inefficient, it's not likely to make it not just a big company. It's because it's not going to solve a big problem, because it's going into a system that is not efficient. And I think that industrial education that we are all going through, which was invented a long time ago, was again invented for a time when it made sense to understand the world by breaking that into subjects and the way we are taught in schools. But that's not how the world is today. That's not how we understand the world today. So our perspective is that's why we've been getting some interest from investors, is that we are trying to redefine education first. We are trying to look at schools and parents and kids who are thinking about education differently, and then we're inserting technology in it, which is, I think, the right way to do it, because it's like putting technology. Technology itself cannot just make magic. I think we have to understand the people who are going to use it, and what do they really want. And if it's something magical, I think it'll create its own demand. So I think we have to, and that's why we're working a lot with schools in Finland who are actually doing very interesting things by getting rid of subjects. And that's exactly what we want to sort of promote. That I think world doesn't exist as math and physics and arts separately. They're all together, and that's what makes us humans. If we sort of still keep teaching kids the way we're teaching in schools, which is a rule based and it's a constraint, robots can learn like that and they'll beat us.
Yeah.
So we have to learn in a way that it's special to us.
Yeah. And again, another book that we've been reading recently is Unscaled by Hemant Taneja, where he says, in the education industry right now, we have these subjects and we had this whole system and standards because a huge scale of population had to be trained and churned out into the workforce immediately. Like that was the need. But now we've come to an era where personalization is important because everybody is unique. So people have started thinking more on, how we can use machine learning for education, how we can use data effectively to empower teachers and parents to understand what their children are learning. And I think this whole concept of AR and VR, so it's drifting a little bit away from ed tech, because it's not education anymore. It's learning, it's understanding, it's social skills. There are so many things, but the moment you think of ed tech, you're like, okay, they're going to improve my math scores. They're going to improve my science scores. That's a connotation people have with ed tech. My marks are going to get higher. My child's going to perform better. But there's so much more to that. And I think that is where the industry is shifting. And you see a lot of people actually working towards those trends. And the concept of how do you make edtech global? Like there are rarely any names in the world right now. Like Google is global, Facebook is global. But when you talk about education, it's very specific. And we understand about, geographical and language barriers and everything, but the learning outcomes are pretty much same at different ages, for a child. So why isn't there a company that is able to scale globally when it comes to education or learning? So I think those are a few questions that investors are asking, and that is why this new shift towards, what is Da Vinci Club doing? It sounds interesting. So we've been getting those positive notes as well.
Your approach hasn't only been through raising funds and money through investors, right? You're everywhere. You're very active. So tell us a little bit more about different avenues that you're choosing to represent equally to the world of investors.
I think the first round of financing that we ever did, we relied on people with good hearts, that is crowdfunding. And that was our first raise of $20,000 that we did. And
was it on
Indiegogo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that. 21,000 something we raised in 20 days.
Wow.
So there, investment just doesn't give you money. It also gives you validation towards what you're doing is right. And when you get that validation from public, when you get that validation from people, experts, head of engineering at Facebook or these people, they put in money without knowing you, randomly seeing your campaign on Indiegogo, you're like, okay, maybe what we're doing is right. Let's keep pushing forward. Let's put our own money in this and put our savings in this. So I think that has helped us. And we've been fortunate to keep finding our side hustles that have helped us a lot.
And you mentioned the validation you were getting from investors actually being willing to put their money into your company. Was there any particular moment where you guys felt, oh my God, what we're doing is actually going to work? This is a sure thing. We're going to make it work.
Definitely. It wasn't with investors. They never bring that feeling that, that talking to them, it's now this idea is suddenly going to work. But I think we realized there was this moment that this is something that what we're building is something really helpful for parents and kids. Was a time when some parents that we were interviewing said that the fact that this technology is making the kid interact with the world is really special. It's unique. They have never seen that. I think that was a moment where we went really sort of deep into augmented reality and sort of understanding the environment through our computer vision algorithm. That was the moment, because what we realized was that it is this revolution of augmented reality and computer vision is not a new modality. It's not a new device that's coming. It's happening in the device that you already have. It's so ubiquitous that it's on the device itself. And I think that is the moment we realized that we might have something that we can sort of attach to what's happening with technology, something that education needs. And I think that was the moment.
So I kind of want to take it back a little bit. Arjita, you mentioned that you were reaching out, you were networking a lot, you were going to events to kind of get the word out about Equally. What is one advice that you can give to people who are just starting out building their network of people from your experience?
It is true for a lot of people. Your career and your success is worth like as big as your net. I have put a lot of intentionality in building my network, and that has really helped me. Again, I wouldn't have realized, because in India it isn't, you don't have to work hard to build your network, because the families are big, the community is so big, and you know who's who already knows you. You know, you can get things done. But again, the good thing about Anshul being here was he could give me that feedback, that go out and build your network. That's very valuable. Find people who sound like you, talk like you, and who have been through that journey. So that was what I did. Like 4.5 years that I've been here, I have put so much intention in building my networks, finding women who have built companies, or finding immigrant entrepreneurs, or finding people of color, or just finding successful people and learning from them. Going to any event possible. I remember while I was in school, I barely got like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, whole day of classes, building your own company, trying to get fundraising, and then running the Net Impact Club and a million clubs in school because, of course, overambitious, trying to do everything. At the same time, attending a million networking events. My only advice to people who are trying to build a network would be smart about it, get overwhelmed, so know why you are building this network. Are these people going to be your friends? Are these people going to help you professionally? Are these people going to be mentors in your life? So have those focuses and then go for those events.
And I wanted to ask you guys about your biggest challenge up till this point, from when you had the initial idea. A few years have gone by. What would you say your biggest challenge has been so far?
I think for me, the biggest challenge has been having the opportunity to do this full time, which is not available that easily for the kind of visas that software engineers are generally on, or product managers are on. So that has been the biggest challenge, and I'm happy that's behind me, that I can actually work on this, and I have the opportunity.
Just getting that opportunity to work. And I would say, if you have that opportunity, please do something. Like, if you can, like we keep talking about it, we're in Silicon Valley and we've got this freedom now. Why not do something impactful? Like, when else in our lives are we going to be able to do something like that? So I remember the feeling in November when we got our green cards approved and everything. We danced to the song of Imagine Dragons, Believer and Thunder. Oh my god, it was a wild evening. We just danced like crazy. We just put it on loud, and our dog thought we went crazy. But that was like, oh my god, the worst is behind us. Anything from here would be great. It's going to be positive. The journey is still going to be hard. Convincing people what you're building is great, but at least we can just sit and build it.
We plan on asking this question from all of our guests on the show. Tell us one phrase in your native language that has no direct translation in English, and try your best to describe the meaning to us and to our listener.
For me, it would be, I think, Ziddi. Ziddi means, it doesn't have a word for it in English. It means relentlessness or restlessness of to change. I think that's what it means.
It means persisting.
How would you use it in a sentence?
I am Ziddi.
I'm Ziddi.
Okay.
That doesn't have. I don't think that.
An entrepreneur is a Ziddi?
Definitely should be, needs to be.
if so,
It's a requirement.
it's right. It is like the passion of it. You have to.
Absolutely, yes.
You cannot take no for an answer. I am here. I'm gonna get this shit done. Like that's Ziddhi. Being stubborn, persistent, relentless, not taking no for an answer. So all those things is one word in Hindi, and that's Ziddhi.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
We're going to use this word from
Yeah.
now on.
Yeah. And the other word I would say in Hindi that doesn't have a word, I would say that has got a recent word which comes a little close in English is jugaad. Jugaad means the closest that word is hack here. Jugaad is finding a solution to any problem without spending resources or money on that. Just solving it by yourself. So in India, you would see a lot of cycles having motorbike motors on that and running at the speed of a motorbike. And we'll say, oh my God, he's done a jugaad. Those are simple life hacks, but it's not exactly hacks because hacks is like braiding your hair. That can be also a life hack, But jugaad is like finding
it's
lean startup-y way of finding a solution.
being resourceful, right?
Being resourceful.
So I think and jugaad actually is a very commonly used word in India, or it's actually part of the culture because when you're in a country like India, you have to be super resourceful for anything. Anything. By anything I mean whether that means getting home in some way or getting education. Everything is about jugaad, which is being resourcefulness. So it's part of almost it's used in a negative connotation, which seems it's temporary hack, but I think it's a great mindset to have if you sort of are disciplined about it.
So much entrepreneurship in your culture. Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Arjita and Anshul, thank you so much for being here, for chatting with us, meeting with us. Shazad and I have so much fun talking to you guys today. It's been really lovely having this first show with you guys. We wish you both success with Equally and all of your future endeavors.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us, and all the best with this podcast. It is, I really wish there was something like this when I had moved here, because it feels that if somebody would have shared a similar story, I wouldn't have been by myself. I wasn't by myself. I had Anshul, but still, it's a scary world to navigate when nobody talks like you, looks like you, or has similar cultures like you.
You just gave me goosebumps, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, great job. Keep doing it. We need more of this.